Namaskar, hello and welcome friends to Finavision, your one-stop solution for CFA exams. My name is Shushmit Aditya Mukherjee. I'm an educator and an investment research analyst, and this video is a short excerpt from the full class series for CFA Level 3 curriculum. Hope you enjoyed this video. Let's get started.
Now friends, we have spoken about monetary policy and its impact during the different phases of the business cycle and how the central banks control the interest rates, right? Now their response is based on inflation, their response is based on productivity, their response is based on demand, and all of this, if you sum it together, the expression of it can be done in one figure, which is the inflation. So based on the inflation primarily, central banks tend to change their interest rates or the short-term repo rates or the short-term rates as you may call it. Now we have already discussed that the trend growth rate of a developed market is quite stable. And even in emerging markets, it is generally stable with certain decreases and increases in slope due to policy changes and etc. But the main objective here is not to create an interest rate which drastically changes the trend growth rate or which impacts the trend growth rate too much, right? Not to change the interest rate so much that the current cyclicality is far more exaggerated than the trend growth rate. Now, how to do that? One way to do that is to apply the Taylor's rule. Taylor's rule says that your policy rate, your current policy rate depends on a few things. These things are, first, your neutral policy rate. Your neutral policy rate means the rate at which the trend growth rate should be maintained. Obviously, the second factor is your trend growth rate. Your trend growth rate. The third factor is the expected growth rate in the short term. The expected growth rate in the short term. The fourth factor is the expected inflation in the short term. Maybe you don't want that inflation, right? Maybe you want it, maybe you don't want it. And the fourth factor is the target inflation rate. The inflation target that you are looking for, right? Now let's say your trend growth rate is 2%. Your trend growth rate is 2%. Your expected growth rate currently, let's say 0%, right? Your expected inflation, let's say, is 5%. Your target inflation, let's say, is 2%. And your neutral policy rate, let's say, is 2%. Now, under these conditions, how would you calculate your policy rate? Your policy rate for the current times, which is I star. There is a formula recommended by Taylor. This formula is like this. I star is equal to R neutral plus expected inflation plus 0.5 into deviation of the expected growth from the trend growth, y expected minus y trend, plus 0.5 into deviation of the current inflation from the target inflation. So pi expected minus pi target. So you are taking into account the deviation of the current growth rate with respect to the trend growth rate and the current inflation with respect to your target inflation, and based on that you are trying to decide your policy rate, I star. So here in our example, what will be the calculation? R neutral is equal to 2%, inflation expected is 5%, growth rate expected is 0%, trend growth rate is 2%, which means you have a trend growth rate which is higher than the current growth rate. Then again, inflation expected is 5%, and the target inflation is 2%. That is, you want a 2% inflation. So the calculation will be 2 plus 5 plus 0.5 multiplied by 0 minus 2 plus 0.5 multiplied by 5 minus 2. So you can easily calculate the value, friends. This is equal to, let's calculate it. You can pause the video and do the calculations. So here in our example, the number that you want is 7.5%. 2 plus 5, 7, minus 1, 6, plus 1.5, 7.5%. is your required policy rate for the current times. You're targeting an inflation of 2% and your trend growth rate is 2%. Your expected growth rate is 0% in the short term, and in the short term your inflation is 5%. Your neutral rate is 2%. So based on all this data, Taylor rule tells us that this is going to be the calculation. I star, or your neutral policy rate for the current numbers, for the current situation, should be 7.5%, right?
The link to the full class video is given in the description below. Please check that out. Thank you so much friends for being with me till the end of this video. If you enjoyed this video, please like the video and subscribe to the channel for more such classes. Share your feedback in the comment section below and share this video with a friend who may find this helpful. For enrollment to practical application courses, internships and CFA curriculum classes, check the description below. Till then, keep watching Finnovision. See you in the next class.